I feel for people these days, man. It's hard. And it's hard in the West, not in the sense that, it's not in the sense that it's abject poverty. Um, People think that, oh, you have a roof over your head, you have food in your mouth, and all of that. And yeah, I'm not trying to say that it's not important to be grateful for these things because there are people, many, many people, sadly, who struggle with these things, with the stability of these basic necessities, of which we do take for granted to a large degree. But it's a different kind of struggle here. It's the fight against emptiness, the fight against, well, what now? Why are we here? Why? What is the end of all this? And, life is about relationships. It's about people. I truly believe that. But when that very thing is constantly being undermined by the very nature of the technology, the very nature of the systems that facilitates such abundance, the systems that are so deeply embedded and entrenched in your everyday way of life, what are you supposed to do? It's sort of this paradoxical inverse relationship where we've created this environment where we're constantly in conflict with ourselves, or in other words, with those things that are supposed to be the end. These are supposed to be the means which bring us to that end, and this is the very thing that we're sabotaging and undoing. And it's a difficult sort of struggle to experience because it's very much abstract. It hangs on the conceptual level. It makes it tough to even articulate in the fullest sense at times. But that's really the struggle here. And maintaining a sort of social or societal and cultural equilibrium, it's so important. It's really ultimately other people that motivate and drive us to be better, no matter how hyper individualistic and hyper materialistic Western society is. There's no inherent value to these goods or success or any of this stuff unless it's recognized by other people that it is so. Through it being recognized by other people, we are afforded their respect and their service. And it's by that service that we're able to leave a mark on the world, because we're able to influence and shape things around us, plant the seeds for trees, which the shade of which future generations are supposed to actually know. It's the joy in being able to plant those seeds, or the power in being able to plant those seeds. That's what drives people. But that connection between past, present, and future, it's been severed thoroughly. And whether we are able to acknowledge this or not on a mass level, I think due to the reality of things like the collective unconscious, we are characterized by it. It's literally a part. It literally defines our consciousness, right? Especially as human beings, we're very sensitive to social systems and the social milieu in which we're embedded in. So, yeah, it's a hell of a thing being caught up in this storm that I think is a truly unique and defining version, one unlike humanity has never seen before, actually. End times have occurred in numerous fashions across history, because history rhymes. It doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Well, it's rhyming, but in a very unique and interesting way. And unfortunately, we do live in interesting times. So I think that maybe this time people aren't equipped to even understand the scale of what they're dealing with. Or rather, the average man isn't equipped. The average man or woman isn't equipped. Perhaps perhaps the technocratic few are, but yeah, it's hilarious. I think this culture creates this super hyper emphasis on self, and because there's nothing deeply societally profound enough for the self to ground itself in. So the questions become complex and layered. Especially the more you think about this shit, the more layered and complex it becomes. And even if you're not able to, again, consciously try to decipher it, I still think we're all subject to it. And it's a global phenomenon, certainly. It's not just in the West, it's a global phenomenon, but I do believe the sort of, how do we put this, the Mecca started, it comes from the West, this energy, this gaping hole. It spawned here, and it's been expanding outwards from here. But it's hell. It's tough for me because I really respect traditional Western values. I've studied it. I've strived to understand it, incorporate it, at least the best parts of it, in my being. And honestly, I'm suffering for it. Because it's grown so suicidal. I think that it's not the best decision. Because it's not able to hold on to itself. I'm not seeing that it's a sensible thing to do anymore. And that's why I don't think ideologies like multiculturalism can unfortunately, ideologies like multiculturalism have become the new default. There's really no alternative, because there's no strong culture for people to embed themselves into anymore who arrive from an outside culture. And it's being posed as something to celebrate. Well, if we're being completely honest, and I think anyone with half a mind to be genuinely truthful, I mean really just sincere about the matter and the issues at hand today, it's quite evident that you can't just piece people together who don't somehow belong to a transcendent whole, because that's so important to defining our individual who I am, right? Life's already complicated enough to answer that question, but I don't think human beings are equipped to handle this sort of maladjusted, this, I can't remember the word right now, but right, this neurotic degree of hyper individualism. It's come to a point where, in the dichotomy of individual and group, the pendulum has swung so far into the individual level that I think individuals themselves, and this is it's quite visible that when it swings that far into the individual side, the tables end up turning on themselves, and people are sort of falling back into a more primal state, actually. And this sort of primal state that they're falling back into, I think it's a reaction. It's an effort to find any kind of ground, any solid ground. However, unfortunately, we had done pretty well. We were climbing up, but through every measure, generally we're on a decline. And I think that's a result of seeking out. You're going to keep falling till you hit some solid ground. So it's a hell of a roller coaster we're on